The member for Swansea.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise today with a heavy heart to inform the House of the passing of Thelma Spencer. Thelma sadly passed away last week at 108 years old. She will be remembered as a big-hearted woman who lived each of her 108 years to the fullest. Thelma passed away last Thursday as one of the state's most senior residents. The House will recognise the story of Thelma. I was very pleased to be able to recognise her 108th birthday in this place with one of my very first community recognition statements. I first met Thelma when I was door knocking in Valentine during the election campaign. I almost didn't believe her when she told me that she was 107 years old. In fact, her son Jim had to call out to her as she was out the back fixing her washing machine. I just simply couldn't believe it at the time. Mrs. Thelma Spencer was born Thelma Levi on June 14, 1907 and grew up as the third of 7 children in Redfern. Her family moved to the Sutherland Shire when she was a teenager, and she later ran a corner store in Yowie Bay and with her late husband James. It was living in the Shire that Thelma began her love affair with the Cronulla Sharks. She remained a staunch supporter till the very end and was loyal through both the good times and the bad. She described to me how she ran the shop alone during the war years when James was in Tobruk fighting for the Australian Army. Tina and Jim, her children, recounted many stories of their life in the shop and the mischief they got up to without their mum knowing, or so they thought. Thelma gave me a smile and a wink as her children shared their stories with me. She was a strong woman with a great sense of humour, a sharp mind and an astute business acumen. She later worked as a piano and violin teacher, which gave her a great sense of enjoyment. And she moved to Valentine when she was 65 years old to live with her son Jim, who is now 79. To give it a bit of context to just how Thelma saw in her 108 years, just consider this. She was born the same year as the first telephone call between Sydney and Melbourne, which was also the same year as the formation of the Bondi Surf Bathers Lifesaving Club at Bondi Beach, the first of its kind in the world. She was 7 at the outbreak of World War I, and in fact, she remembered the Great Depression well when we spoke. When I congratulated Thelma on what would have been her last of 108 birthdays, I noted that at 108 she was certainly no shrinking violet. She was tough, she was funny, and she had a sense of wit that's up there with the best of them. Of course, she had the wisdom that belongs to 108-year-olds. We should never underestimate how important that insight is when you have lived through so much. I personally respect the level of intellect enormously. In a lovely piece in the Newcastle Herald penned by Helen Gregory after Thelma's passing, her nephew, Vic Levi, said, "The mother of 2, grandmother of 4 and great-grandmother of 6 was kind, loved a joke and cherished her family." He went on to say, her legacy will be the love she showed for her children and all her relatives. She just got on with everybody. Her family meant so much to her. She was very loyal to her family, and they were equally as loyal to her. She was going the full distance. She was determined to get as much out of life as she could. Mr. Levi said the highlight of Mrs. Spencer's year had been meeting the Cronulla Sharks when they played the Newcastle Knights at the Hunter Stadium, and she received a hug and a kiss from the captain, Paul Gallen. Mrs. Spencer had been planning to meet the New South Wales Governor, General David Hurley, next month at an annual gathering of centenarians. It would have been her turn to cut the cake. Thelma Spencer, you are loved by those close to you and respected in your community. May you rest in peace.
Madam Speaker.